Alright, this video's shooting from the hip. This video's been inspired more or less with a combination of, I don't know, about 4 things. A few things that I've sort of mentioned in my videos over the last year and a half here and there, but never really got in too deep. A conversation I had with a gentleman named Tim Anderson around here. James Crowder 77's last video where he got a bunch of 8-cent comics, and Agent 42Q's review of Squadron Supreme that I had suggested that he read since he was a big fan of The Authority and stuff. And as always, it's kind of like shooting from the hip, so we'll see if we can get there together. Alright? The biggest thing is that, like, growing up there was things I wanted to avoid doing, and a lot of what I saw was like generation gaps, generation things. Didn't give you any idea what I'm talking about. We're going to use rock and roll. What music and comics have in common is that in one form or the other, they've always been with us since caveman days. I mean, that's no exaggeration. That's silly, okay? Music's always been part of our cultures, all around the world. Anywhere you go, they've got music. They've had music. And then the art of storytelling, just us being social creatures, you know. The storytelling helped develop our language. It made caveman pictures on the walls that are discovered and interpreted, hieroglyphics and stuff. Language and visuals have always they haven't always gone hand in hand, but they've always sort of been evolved together. And we ended up having like great artists Renaissance, and art was more or less seemed to appear to be for storytelling, to tell people what was outside the cave that didn't go with them, things that happened far away. You get the idea. And as trite as comic books are, and they're just comic books and stuff, it just amazes me that everything led up to this being an art form. Okay. And the two things about rock and roll in comic books that kind of go together is the fact that, once money started being made, this stuff has continuously just been vomited out. There's no other word, man. It's been there. It's been coming out in glut. It reached the pinnacle of it was probably music in the 60s, I would say, where people were just putting out pop records like you wouldn't believe, and things started getting a little bit more produced, and images were important, and you had the Monkees TV show, and it's all part of it. And then comic books in the 90s, man, there was a time where the bubble popped yet again in comics, and we almost lost the industry, basically because in one form or the other there was almost 800 comics a month coming out, different titles, okay, different companies and everything like that. And what I wanted to try to avoid was becoming that old man I saw when I was little, the old men. And there's a generational gap, and I kind of thought that applied. I never wanted to be that old man that grew up and looked down on what the kids were into. Your music sounds like shit. You need to listen to this stuff. This is real music. That kind of thing. So that kind of carried over there. And I love music as much as I love comics and stuff. All different kinds, and that's part of the cool thing about today. I'm not old, I'm not ancient, I'm not old or anything like that. I'm not trying to sound like that. But, there is a difference between those old men, me trying to avoid becoming that old man, and, there we go, and what's out there today. I want to compare some older comics with today's comics, okay? And some of the things that I know I'm going to point out off the bat is what was influenced by those videos I was talking about and stuff. Agent 42Q's video on the Squadron Supreme was really fascinating because he admittedly said that this was a comic he never would have checked out, the Squadron Supreme from 1985. And he got it. I heard, I've been a fan of the story since it came out. I was collecting Squadron Supreme when everybody else was collecting Watchmen, I got my Squadron Supreme off the newsstand every month. And he pointed out, but what really got me was, it wasn't so much what he said about the story that he got, it was the differences between a comic book from 1985 and the comic books that he buys today, and how he was able to fly through a whole trade paperback through his lunch break, compared to he was lucky to get through one issue at a time of Squadron Supreme during his lunch break. And right there, it clicked for me. I'm not that old man saying that, your music's shit today. It's not. We actually live in a lucky time where people who are younger, and myself included, going back, thanks to the internet and whatnot, we have this whole library spread out in front of us in a way. And there's already been a beginning, there's already been a middle, and people can always say looks like there might be coming to an end, thanks to the internet and competition and the loss of quality and things like that in both comics and music and stuff. And it's a whole big conversation people can debate and talk about and stuff. But it's all laid out there. It's wonderful that you can go back and just sort of see the big picture of the history of this stuff. Whereas people like me who started reading in 1977, and there's people like Captain Strange's Life and Hippie Collectibles who probably started in the 60s up. We kind of lived through some of that history at different eras, and now it's been around for so long you can actually go back and see the big picture, how it all kind of ties together, and it does. Okay. So what I did to get on with this is, first of all, I don't have that, amazingly enough, I really don't have a whole lot of newer comics. It kind of surprised me. So what I did is first of all, went through and picked a newer Justice League book. Yes, it's a year old, but you get the point. And I whipped out a Dark Avengers. Okay, so I went to my shelves over here and randomly picked out the same comics from the past. Ended up getting Justice League number 195, and ended up whipping out, and I'll probably just go through this one, Avengers 185. Okay, and we're going to compare the older comics with the newer comics. Let's look at, I'm going to be unbiased here, and we're going to look at the quality of both books, the pros and cons real quick. Okay. All right, we're going to start with Justice League real quick. Where did I do with it? Alright, right off the bat, we'll start with today's comics. And first thing we want to show here is that this particular comic, $3.99. Okay, high quality paper. Alright, compared to the older stuff, nice, shiny, glossy. Computers help with the colors. Okay, superstar artists like Jim Lee, superstar writer Jeff Johns is on this. 3 panels on the first page. One caption, 5 years ago, let us know where and when. Established and shot is apparently a city with a SWAT team out there. And a big 2-page spread of Batman. And as the story goes along and stuff, not a lot of dialogue. They're trying to get some action in there. And like I said, as I go through this and read this, I can read this pretty quick. Honestly, I can read this book in less than 5 minutes. Okay. A lot of shine on it. Advertising is just the other books so far that are coming out. DC inspired books. A little bit of conflict between our heroes. They're supposed to be meeting for the first time. And I honestly feel like I could just really, we got one whole panel that is just a sound effect. This thing sort of flows like it's trying to be a movie to a certain extent. Trying to set up the next, it's all introductory. We're just seeing our, big splash page of Superman on the last page. So there's a lot of high-end art there. That decompressed storytelling where we don't have thought bubbles, we don't have captions, we don't have a lot of narrative. They're trying to tell the story visually, which is basically, a little action in there mixed with, action there mixed with introduction and stuff. I feel like, knowing where this book has started and come and stuff, I feel like he's writing towards a trade paperback. This story is going to have the pacing and flow to fill 6 issues, 7 issues, whatever their trade's going to be. He's definitely writing to that. a comic book like this, even though it's $3.99, and with that decompressed storytelling, the lack of the narrative that I was talking about, I can probably actually read it and take everything in less than 5 minutes. And actually, a lot of the comics out today, the reason I don't buy them is I can actually sit there and flip through them, scan them, and there I got it. Not a whole lot going on. The art, you know, I can sit there and really go back and maybe look at the art maybe one more time, take it in. It's not the kind of book where I'm seeing anything that I want to like really discuss, make it feel doesn't really feel important. And you know, I don't see any great poses. I don't see anything that's really going to make me really want to talk about this book or pick it up and read it again. Maybe scan the art one more time. I don't see like any Easter eggs in here. I don't see meaning that I don't see any like in the background that the artist can have fun with it and stuff, and like you know, I don't see any streets that could be named Kirby or Kane or anything like that. You know, just kind of hide in there. Just a bunch of heroes slowly coming together, a little bit of action just to keep us going. Read it in 2-3 minutes. So we go back to Justice League of America 195, featuring the Justice Society of America versus the Secret Society of Supervillains. This book came out in 1981, written by Gary Conway and George Perez. He was also George Perez was also the artist. First one we have is an establishing shot. Targets of 2 worlds. And we have some heroes with some X's. It already tells me the story is flowy and something's happened. We have establishing shots of Earth 2 with a lot of dialogue and narrative. Beautifully drawn. You know, just like the other Justice League book, #1 from 2010. Okay. Second page, we move along, and we have Earth 1. And we have a little bit of action going on in a hospital, and we have a patient that has escaped, as you can see. And I don't know if you can see here, but he was in St. Ignatius Loyola Hospital, and apparently as he scaled down, he knocked the lights out to where it spells signal. So it's the Signal Man. We got a little Easter egg in there of him having a little bit of style. And he meets Killer Frost of Earth 1, and this is taking place on Earth 2, as it says up there. No, it takes place on Earth 1, excuse me. So already, just in 3 pages, we have an establishing shot with our heroes. Sets the mood, sets the tone, very cool. We have 2 shots, 2 pages establishing villains and then meeting people in shot. We already have an escape, you know, just a whole lot of storytelling going on, lots of dialogue. We've already even got an editor's note telling us to go look at Detective 466 so we get to know who the Signal Man is. Alright, so right away. And we continue, man. Third page of the story, you know. Again, Earth 2, we're in a prison. I mean, we've already changed scenery. It's moving around. It's popping around. You can keep up with it. And as it goes on, you know, it's a big prison escape. Looks like that's the theme. You know, one escape from the hospital, one escape from the prison, and it all ties together because our villain from that second page of the story has popped up to help him escape from prison. So we've already got a continuity, we've already got characters being introduced to the story, and they're already being effective in what they're using. Right off the bat, what I'm seeing is that this was a 60-cent comic, and lower grade of paper. Kind of a pulpy paper with it. The coloring is pretty simple. It's not computerized, but you know, lots of grays, lots of browns. Greens aren't really that different. You know, they got, you know, pretty much a standard blue for the uniforms, grays in there for the what I'm seeing in there. You know, it's not as intricate as the other one. I don't feel like I'm doing very well here, guys, but hang in there. So as I go along through this, we get more and more introductions of all these villains, and it just flows. And the pacing with the narrative and the background colors, as we said, even though they're not highly computerized and intricate and stuff, when we have a man sitting here getting thrown back with some violence on them and stuff, for what they do in the background, it goes red. and red indicates rage, blood, violence, and stuff. It psychologically adds to the story, and we find out it's the cheetah messing these guys up because they're trying to rape her. And it's done real subtly. You know, it's not real graphic. It leaves it in our mind. After we see what's going on, our mind will fill in the gaps better than what they can show in the story, and more tasteful. You know, it keeps the story tasteful and readable, and we can fill in the gaps there. So it's already got us more engaged than just introducing characters in this Justice League, with what I can tell. Okay, even though it feels more like a comic book story tale, not, you know, it's more dense and you're drawn in, and it is told a little bit more simpler, and the dialogue probably isn't as close to realistic as the modern book. Okay, and yet it keeps going on. We keep getting introduced to characters, and we're not overwhelmed. I mean, we're really weaving ourselves into this story. They're setting up these characters to where we know what they are. Cheetah is savage. They bring in the ragdoll. The ragdoll's more like a three-jointed hood doing a bank robbery. They pulled in the monocle here, and the monocle is a tasteful gentleman. I mean, we already know the basis of these characters right away, you know, in fewer pages. George Perez and Gary Conway really did well. Then we come up to this gentleman in his, he's got some plants and a greenery and things, and all our villains that have escaped on this one Earth, and we know they're on Earth 1, it's been told very simply. You know, we find out he's the Floronic Man. And in one page, we've got another introduction, and we know all about this guy. We already know he tried to escape being a villain. He's trying to pose as human, and they make him shed that facade to be who he is, the Floronic Man. Still, we haven't seen a hero yet, but we know it's coming. And they introduce more, and then right in the middle of it, we get an awesome 2-page spread pinup just for fun. Now tell me that's not cool. Fun. A little bit of fun in there. And they keep introducing the villains, and then simply, real quickly in one panel, they explain how they're traveling between two Earths. They land. It doesn't bog down the story. We don't need it over-explained to us. And all the villains meet. And we know exactly where we're at, Earth 2, thanks to a little bit of narrative. And then we see the mastermind behind it, and look what he gets. What an imposing figure. He gets the biggest panel on the page. He gets his name in really bold words, the Ultra Humanite. And then we get everybody's reaction and a brief history of this guy. 4 panels, we know everything we need to do. This story is set up, and we know the heroes are coming. So we're going to get a plot and a twist. The plot is we're going to take out some heroes from both Earths, and that's going to cause an instability between dimensions, and we win. You know, I'm oversimplifying it, but it's that simple. We get about 3 panels to explain what it is. We understand these are the bad guys, and we get everybody's reaction. They're on board. Then we finally see the heroes. And we get interaction between all the heroes that, you know, through all those little bubbles and eavesdropping on all these conversations going on at once. We got everything we need. And that's what it's all about. And then party's over. Second page, on with the story. Black Widow's on monitor duty, and the villains attack. It's already in process. We've got all the setup. We know it's coming. The pacing's great. The coloring is helping with the psychology of the story, making an impact. We know who the boss is. We know what the plot. Now they're just getting hunted. And everybody more or less gets a page and a half or a page or 2 to fight their villain. Hawkman gets took down. Wonder Woman apparently gets took down. And everybody catches up on the end, and they leave us with a cliffhanger. So, I find it very ironic that comics cost more, better paper, better coloring, and then, you know, this has a better pacing, more density, even though it has a more sophomoric sort of dialogue, and some of the reactions are a little bit cliched, yet, you know, it would take me, I think it took me 15 to 20 minutes to read this comic and take it in. And it has the one key factor, rereadability. That's not nostalgia talk or anything like that. The art is great, the pacing's great, all these characters to look at. There's just more packed in here to make it more interesting. Okay? And I think I'm going to leave it at that, because I don't want to make a huge long video, so we'll just leave it there with the Justice League, a DC book. So if you guys like this video, I will do a part 2 if you like, but I think, there it is in front of you. I try to do an unbiased approach, compared comic books of yesterday, each with its pluses that I saw and negatives with, a modern comic versus the comic from yesteryear. Alright guys, okay, let me know what you think. I shot from the hip here, and I think it went alright.